yet, but we're moving towards.
Okay, I'll just go 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3. We're good to go. I don't have quite 9:30 yet, though. Yes, and at 9:30, everything will work magically. There's an echo in here. At 9:30, everything will work magically.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Heather. I have 9:30, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel. Just before we begin the regular agenda, a couple of items, housekeeping items, and the first one is that the Saturday of the Alderton Fair on Saturday, October 2nd, our Middlesex Centre Fire Services also had their annual boot drive for muscular dystrophy. And I'm really pleased to be able to announce that they raised $26,130.50. And I want to congratulate each and every one of them for their effort and the dedication that they have to this charity. In particular, I'd like to mention Chief Lonnie Fletcher from Coldstream Detachment, who over the years has offered continued support to this and expends considerable effort doing that. So thank you to Lonnie and congratulations to all of our firefighters. Also, when I'm quiet, then the technical people will start a video. And this is a video that was produced to recognize our staff. The years of service video is thanking everyone that has been here for different periods of time. And it explains itself. So just stay tuned and we're going to now see that presentation. I'll, should I repeat all that? Okay, I'm going to now move into the agenda, and I noted that there are no additions to the items that we have, and I'm going to ask for disclosures of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have anything to declare? Seeing none, we can now then, I guess, go to court of revision. So I'm going to ask for a motion that council adjourn its regular meeting to sit as court of revision under section 97 of the Drainage Act, as amended, to consider the Van de Born drain with members from Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Shipley and Deputy Brennan in the mayor, Deputy Mayor Brennan in the chair. Sorry, it's a bad morning. But someone would move that, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Scott. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I'll turn it over to someone who doesn't have cotton balls. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll call this court of revision in place. I will ask the clerk if there have been any objections to any of the assessments made.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can confirm that there's been no appeals received to date for this file.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to accept this report and the assessments as presented? Councillor Shipley, second by Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? Thank you. No other business. I will adjourn this meeting.
And now we'll move to the adoption of the minutes. We have the September 22nd, 2021 council meeting documents in front of us. Is there any, I don't see any hands for errors or exceptions. So the motion before us is that the minutes of the Middlesex Centre Council meeting held on the 22nd of September 2021 be adopted as printed. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. There are quite a number of items here. Is there anything anyone would like to pull out right now to speak to or ask questions about? I'll start with Councillor Arts and then I'll move to Councillor Heffernan. Go ahead, Councillor Arts. Oh, okay. Councillor Heffernan, do you want to start us off then?
Okay, through the mayor, I just have a question. The Brummel Municipal Drain Petition. Is it the farmer asking for that, or is it the municipality requiring it? I just wasn't clear on the way that was noted. And does it even matter? Like, I'm just wondering what the rules are on that.
And Rob's just coming on. There he is.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. Could I just get Councillor Heffernan to repeat that question? I just missed a small moment of it.
Sure. To Rob, just curious on the Brummel drain petition. Is it the farmer asking for that drain maintenance or whatever it is, or is it municipality requiring it, or does it even matter?
It's through the mayor to Councillor Heffernan. So it is the farmer that is requesting it. It's an existing private drain that he's asking to have converted to a municipal drain. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. The assessment will come back what the assessment will be, regardless of who petitions for it.
Okay, thanks. I was just curious because of the way it was worded. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Arts.
Yep. Through your Madam Mayor. I don't know if this is maybe it'd be addressed specifically to Michael, or it's about the 7.2 modernization program. And I know the government's supplying us money to do stuff like this, but there's some of those programs, especially when we're going to do a fire services master plan. I want the report to council by the 1st of April, because some of this stuff, we've been on council long enough, we know what's going on, and I want to make sure all these reports are received, approved before the next council takes over, because usually it takes a couple of years for your councilors to get their feet wet. So if these reports can't get done by a certain specific time next year, I think they should delay it for 2 more years so they can get their feet underneath them and understand what's going on. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, observations, comments? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion before us that items 7.1 through 7.8 listed on the consent agenda for October 3rd, 2021 be adopted as recommended. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, now moving to staff reports. The first item is 8.1, which is addressing the vaccination policy. I'll look to Michael then to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair to members of council, before you is a report that speaks to an expansion of an administrative policy. On September 17th, a policy was administered to staff that speaks to a mandate in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the municipality implemented a policy to ensure the proper safety and well-being of our staff. And so that policy came into effect at the end of September and is now in force. And we're happy to report over mid 90% compliance rate with our staff, all of our staff from full-time across the organization to part-time and contract. And so the report before you is an expansion of the scope of this policy, whereby we also have dealings with contractors and consultants. We have appointed committee members that have advisory committees of the organization and for members of council. And so if council wishes, the information to the appendice explains the red additions to the current policy, whereby it would be expanded to those particular areas. And so the way it would be administered is for contractors or consultants performing work. We would just receive a letter of affirmation from their company business that advises that those attending to do work for the municipality on our sites are either vaccinated or have the proper testing in place within 48 hours of attending the site. And so that is the extent of the expansion of the policy, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'll look to council then for any questions or clarification on this. Councillor Scott and then Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple comments and then I have a couple questions, maybe to end. It's been an interesting time with these vaccinations and the actual enforcement of them. And I can say that I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. And I'm just not in favor with giving people no choice but to take them, especially for employment purposes. So I just wanted to make that clear that I feel it's important that everybody gets an option, to make a choice towards their health. I know this is a public health issue. I've got some concerns even with public health issues, the way they've dealt with some of the stuff in the past. And I'm not here to cut anybody down, but I think about some of the things and some of the decisions they've made in our world in the last couple of years. One being, lockdowns. And they've created a lot of problems with people and a lot of deaths or stuff like that, where people, have dealt with a lot of stress. And so now I feel here we go again, offering it with vaccinations. Like people, I realize they got a choice. They can say no, and that's a good thing, but then they have to quit their job or be fired. So it adds another level of stress to people's life. And you know what, I feel that, I come to this position to make a difference, make a change. And so I kind of want to stand up and say, hey, I don't believe that we should be making anybody take it. I think they should, and they do have a choice. I understand that, but your choice to take it, or you don't have a job, or you go work somewhere else. So I see it as another form of discrimination, which is what we've been trying to avoid in our world. So I understand the last few years we've recognized places where we've done that. And now we're opening up the can of worms to do it again. And public health, I know they're supposed to be our God, I guess, when it comes to health. But I look at some of the stuff they've done. They've locked us down and they closed a lot of small businesses and they left the big businesses open with hundreds of people lined up there. And, they never once mentioned anybody about, let's talk about eating better and healthier, and maybe we could quit smoking and drinking less. Matter of fact, the LCBO is listed as an essential service. I'm thinking, really? You know what I mean? And so now that's what it looks like to me anyway. The fact that they were trying to not really look out for our health as much as they should be. And so anyway, I think it's just important that people have the option to choose. And like I said, I understand they do have the option. They can either get vaccinated or they have to give up their job. And you know what? I'm feeling bad about that. So I can't rightfully sit here and vote in favor of it. And so with all due respect to the presenter, and I understand that, I want to say that I can't support it. And I also feel that I've given a lot of thought to it. And I got thinking, I'm not just going to go along with this. I don't do that with anything. That's why I feel I ran for the job, is to make a difference. And I think if we look at things locally, I can make a difference in a local way. And a bunch of local people can change the county's position, and a bunch of local people can change the province's position on this. So I just want to make a stand. That's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Shipley.
You through the mayor to Michael, excuse me, Michael, in respect to the 48 hours prior to the antigen testing, are we going to continue like on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every 48 hours after that fact?
Through the chair to Councillor Shipley, it depends on the scenario. And so from an administrative standpoint, we've determined, we've worked out a schedule since we're a 7-day operation here, where it depends on the situation. So for municipal staff, it's a Monday and Thursday days that we've landed upon. For this situation, where if we need to receive the antigen testing, if it's a medical exemption, then it would just be 48 hours prior to attending the site. Because we understand a contractor might attend on a Saturday or might attend on a Tuesday. So we're just going to accommodate the employer as much as we can to ensure that the work gets done.
So then if they continued further than the Saturday or Sunday, they'd have to be retested again. Is that correct? Just a follow-up question, if I can, Madam Mayor, the antigen testing will be done at a registered pharmacy, not self-done themselves?
Through the chair, it's generally recommended at a pharmacy, but there are tests that you can get now from the health unit directly, where we'll accept those. Those are approved, and so as long as they have that proof with them and they are confident enough to conduct it themselves, that is acceptable.
So they will actually bring something in from that test saying that they have passed the test?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone, Councillor Cates and then Councillor Scott?
So just to clarify, through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael, just to clarify, so those little rapid tests, is that what you're meaning? Somebody could do a rapid test and?
Correct, Councillor Cates.
Okay, and so just one other thing, just I thought of with Councillor Scott's comments, just to clarify, I'm sure that we're just revising a policy we've already accepted.
Through the chair, this is, we're not revising a policy. There's a policy.
Or,
in
I mean,
place.
amending?
Yes, we're updating it, but we're expanding the scope. I have the scope and the purview within the organization for the well-being and safety of our employees, but it's council's purview to expand that. We're using it as a template to work from since it's already in place.
Yeah, so the employees here already are falling under this. I just wanted to sort of say that out loud. We're just adding, like in red, the contractors and us as a council. Thank you.
Councillor Heffernan.
To the mayor, to Michael. So in the event of contractors and subcontractors and consultants and that, if they are not interacting with any municipal staff, does that make a difference? Or if they're doing Zoom meetings or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councillor Heffernan, through the chair. If we have a consultant that's doing work that we know they're not setting foot in the municipality, then this policy would not be applicable to them. If they can confidently conduct their work from afar and complete whatever they need to do. And there's situations, for instance, our IT master plan review, where it is possible that those consultants are doing what they need to do for the organization via Zoom, then we're not going to make this enforced.
Okay, and further, what about client, like residents that are coming in to pay their taxes or what have you. So they are interacting with staff. We're not going to ask them, like, they can still come in.
Through the chair to Councillor Heffernan, at this point, we just have our general screening protocols in place for patrons and users of our amenities. So nothing's changed in that regard, where there's the QR code screening or a sheet that's filled out and the name. And you'll notice now with the expansion, of the government regulations for recreational arenas, that's where proof has now been provided. So we're just going to follow and adhere to provincial guidelines as it continues to expand.
Okay, and one follow-up as well, just referring to Councillor Scott's comments. So is there any, would we face any legal liabilities in this case? And I'm thinking particularly of, well, anyone, but also in the case of contractors, if we've already given the contract to a company and then it turns out that they don't have this policy in place and they are interacting with our staff, then what happens then?
Through the chair, like any contractor, it's a contract, so each party has the right to sever the ties to do the work if we so choose. And so if it's council's wish to adopt and expand the scope of this policy, proper communications will be going out with some of the more frequent businesses that we deal with to provide a heads up on how we're operating as an organization and what the compliance needs to be. And then from there, we'll make the decision, and the company that wants to do business with us will have a decision to make.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in with my question because that topic is where I was wondering about some things and wanted clarification. I was thinking about one step before we actually hire them. Given that, for example, the contracts for some modernization are required to be completed on or before January, whatever it was, is there a clause or a phrase or a section in the tendering agreements now that suggests that if you are not comfortable with these things, you might want not to apply unless you can provide a writing that you can do everything off-site, right? Is that something that's have our documents been amended?
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor and to Councillor Heffernan, that's just it. We're looking at a period of time, and with anything new, there's now clauses that are stipulated in the contracts that talk about adherence to these types of policies. So I was responding to our more familiar businesses we deal with, which we'll have to do communications and collaboration and accommodation. But for anything on a go forward, modernization, for instance, or any new reviews that we undertake, then it's definitely a consideration as part of the tender papers that gets submitted out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Michael, the testing is only provided for the people that come up with a medical exemption. Is that true?
Through the chair, correct, yes.
Okay. And the other question I had was, as far as natural immunity is concerned, I mean, there's been talk about, if you already had COVID, that you're actually much more protected than you are with the shot. Has that been a consideration for us? Did we consider that at all? Or are we just kind of doing a copy and paste from what the county has provided?
Through the chair, this is a review of a number of different policies that are out there, both public and private organizations. And so if there was someone that had that contracted it prior, and that is we think that that's the case, I would hope that a medical proof would then confirm that situation, and then we could go on that basis to accommodate them through the policy.
Okay, yeah, because there is actually testing to prove if you've had COVID in the past. So if somebody's able to do that and have a test that proves they've had COVID in the past, will they be exempt from this policy?
I mean, through the chair, I'm not a doctor, but I would hope they could build their case and talk to a medical professional. And then from there, we'll then apply our policy and accommodate where we can.
Okay, the reason I ask is because a lot of them aren't doing it. So I didn't know if ours is a copy and paste or whether we've actually, are we going to look at this as an individual policy for Middlesex Center?
Right. Through the chair, this is a policy for our organization, first off. Okay. Second off, every case is unique. And so in learning from the administrative policy and dealing with our staff, we're accommodating our staff where we can. And so it'd be no different if council decided to expand this policy for contractors or consultants or council members or whoever, we would, we have human resources where we would just take the information in confidence and we'd work with the individual. If it's a contractor that is a unique service that we're working with a business and we happen to get information from them, we're not going to adamantly deny them. We're going to do our best and work with that company where we can use this policy because the end goal is safety and health and well-being. And so my priority is to ensure we provide a safe working environment, not just for our staff, but if we're going to expand it to contractors that come into our facility, we have people, we have contracts in place, whether it's county or other types of dealings where people come onto our sites. So the end goal of this is to create a safe atmosphere to do their job. So that's the whole focus of this. And we're an accommodating employer. So put the two and two together. And I think we have this policy that we can rely on.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, listening to the discussion through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael, I'm not looking for a policy that's going to have a lot of exemptions. I want something that is fairly straightforward and doesn't, because you get in to start making exemptions and everything for all these different reasons, and then it tears the policy apart because it has no teeth in it. So I would like to see very little variance from the policy, very few exemptions to the policy, because I think the policy can only be effective if it's adhered to the way it's written. So I'm not in favor of seeing exemption after exemption after exemption. I think we do have to consider that the people that have been vaccinated, we have a right or an obligation to try to protect them as much as we can. And this policy, I think, is one of the steps that we need to do to protect them. So I think for the mass that have been vaccinated, I think this policy goes a step in protecting them. And so I don't want to see too many variances from it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, well, the motion before us is then that report CAO 25/2021 regarding the proof of COVID-19 vaccination policy be received and that the policy appended to report CAO 25/2021 be adopted. I'm looking for a mover, please, and seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much for that. Michael's up again with respect to the funding of the water main extension at Longwoods Road.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair to members of council. Last month, there was the September 22nd council meeting. Council received a report, a planning report. It was number 80-2021. And it approved a draft plan of condominium for a light industrial development. And as part of the conversation with the applicant, they've reached out to staff to look at assisting for providing some funding assistance in response to the extension of the water main along Longwoods Road in Delaware. And so when we reviewed this request, the report that you have before you provides a bit of analysis to rationalize the staff response should council wish to move forward with this. And so we agreed to move ahead with reviewing this request, and we have a recommendation before you to move forward with providing some financial assistance. And confirming through legal counsel, the rationale essentially is that this is seen as a communal benefit where there's going to be an opportunity for future development. And in drafting and finalizing this report, I did reach out to some of the neighboring property owners who are also thankful to see the municipality take an initiative like this. This isn't deemed bonusy where we're just dealing strictly with one property. What we're doing here is we're extending a portion of this water main, which down the road in the future will reap benefit for other surrounding properties. And so the response in reviewing this in this matter is to actually support the request and provide some funding. And so the recommendation before you is to move forward with providing some subsidy to the applicant, helping with the extension of the water main. The other part to this is that there's going to be clauses in development agreements for the surrounding properties where the monies will be repaid back into the reserve fund that's being asked to take those monies from. So we're taking the money from the Delaware Reserve Fund. That fund essentially was to help grow the community. And so this is a prime example of seeing a nice mixture of new development take place for that area. And what we would do is then we would take the monies used for this subsidy and we would build clauses in development agreements of the surrounding properties where there'd be a little clause noted that there'd be a payout that will be monies put back into the reserve fund. So that 60,000 that's being suggested for withdrawal will then be built back up. And so that's essentially the recommendation from staff, and happy to take any questions from council.
Okay, thank you for that report. I'm looking for any questions, comments. Yes, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Michael. Yeah, so the recovery part, do you know exactly how many people might possibly want to hook up in the future to recover that 60,000? Is that, is there like 5 or 10 or?
Yeah, I
Just
think I
curious
have
on
it
if
in
you
the
have a number.
through the chair to Councillor Scott. It's noted in the report. Just
Oh, is it?
yeah, just
Sorry.
going through here.
I did look at it, but I didn't notice it in there. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's 5 total, 2 on the south, 3 on the north.
Oh.
That and I've got Rob here that can confirm with me as well.
Okay, so that would recover the 60,000 on those 5 properties if they were to hook up.
You want to jump in, Rob?
Sure. So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Scott. So the intent for the recovery mechanism isn't really intended to be by the single residential connections. It's for the larger parcels of land that may develop in the future, whether it's commercial or residential. And that recovery mechanism would be built into the subdivision agreements for those developments, allowing us to capture a larger sum of money through the agreement.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense to me. Thanks, Rob. And I think, like you said, in the future, probably it's important that we're placing that money back. I think it's a good idea to get things rolling there for sure to help out, but that's good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yep, I'm in agreement too. This is a way of moving things forward, sort of like broadband, make sure that what the people need is there and we can get going with this. So I'm looking for a motion then on this. Where is it? Here it is. That report CAO 24/2021 regarding funding of water main extension on Longwoods Road be received, and that the amount of $60,000 be provided for the purposes of the water main extension along Longwoods Road to support development, and that the amount of $60,000 be withdrawn from the Delaware Hydro Reserve Fund, and further that future development revenues realized from this water main extension be reinstated back to the Delaware Hydro Reserve Fund. And a mover, Councillor Scott, and seconded by Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? And no one's opposed, so that is carried. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll look now to our Director of Public Works on the Kilworth wastewater demolition single source agreement. Rob, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So yeah, good morning again. So this is a report looking for council approval to single source consultant for the design and approval and contract administration for the demolition of the Kilworth wastewater treatment plant. So the Kilworth wastewater treatment plant was taken out of operation in 2019 after the new pumping station was up and running. So this project is the final step in the conversion over to the pump station pumping the Kilworth flows to the Kamoka wastewater treatment facility. The plant has essentially sat dormant now for nearly 2 years. We have completed some minor stripping down of the plant. It's all been cleaned, and we've sold off a couple of assets where we could easily recoup some value from the plant. But at this point, it's just sitting there dormant and using a small amount of hydro and some minor maintenance costs. So we did go to an RFP through bids and tenders, looking for an open tendering process for the consultant for this project. Unfortunately, we only had two different consultants attend the site meeting. There were some contractors that were interested that attended the meeting. In the end, we only received one bid from a single consultant who was MTE. So their price was $108,000, $305.60 plus HST. RV Anderson had completed a capital study in 2019 looking at the projected cost for the demolition of this plant. And they had identified a total estimate, including engineering and demolition, of $1,070,000. So the engineering component of that would have been roughly $140,000. So this bid by MTE does come in under that budget. We have carried the budget for the demolition and the engineering component as well in the 2020 budget and was carried forward to 2021. We know that the actual demolition is unlikely to take place this year. The approval of this consultant will get that project started, looking at getting the front end work and the tendering documents ready to move forward with the actual demolition in 2022. So at this point, we recommend moving forward with them. We see that their bid was within the budget that we had anticipated it falling within. It's unfortunate that we didn't receive more than one bidder, which is always the preference. But we're not confident that if we go back out to the market that we'll receive any more than a single bid as well. Consultants seem to be busy right now. And like I said, it was surprising that there was only two that even attended the site meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that report then. Councillor Arts, we'll start with you.
Through your Madam Mayor to Rob, my Dutch heritage has a really hard time accepting the fact that it's going to cost $1 million to clean this place up. Personally, if it's not a hazard, I'd rather leave it for a while, and maybe we have a recession and we'll have some contractors that are hungry and they'll do it for half the price. If there's a possibility it's a building lot, which I don't think it is due to the nature of where it is, we can maybe try to sell it as is. So I know you've done your due diligence and everything, Rob, but I at this time I just can't. I can't support this. My head won't accept the fact that it costs that much money. Thank you.
Councillor Shipley.
Through the mayor to Rob. Rob, I'm just looking for some clarification. We RFP'd for a consultant, or we RFP'd for someone to come in and tear it down? I just question why we have to go through a consultant. We can get contractors in to tear this down.
Yep. So the RFP was for a consultant to essentially manage the project, to prepare the contract documents, to do a site survey, just to oversee the project and ensure that the site is cleaned up properly so that it can be either redeveloped into a greenfield space or potentially into some developable property. So this RFP, this appointment would be for the consultant only. We do have the option of going to the point of tendering for the demolition, and if we're not satisfied with the pricing that comes back for the demolition, that we don't go forward with it at this time, or we can choose not to go forward with the engineering at this point either. Certainly, there's by leaving the facility as it is, there's some risk in liability that we'll have to continue to put in a small amount of money to maintain it. We do have open tanks on the site that we should probably look at filling in if we're not going to demolish the site as it is. So there would be some small ongoing costs if we don't proceed with the project. And the other thing I should probably point out too is that the value of this project was carried in the 2019 DC study, and so that time it was identified as 79% DC fundable. So that'll be reviewed and reconfirmed in the amendment that will be coming forward. But that is our belief right now, is that it will be in large part DC fundable.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Scott.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. I'm kind of thinking the same along the line of Council Arts too, where it seems hard to spend that kind of money on it right now. And I was gonna ask you what the disadvantages are of leaving it, and I'm assuming the open tank, so there's no lids on them, they're just a big hole in the ground that could become hazardous. And I too would like to see some options. If we were to clean the site up and spend that kind of money, what can we turn around and sell that property for $1 million? Because if that's the case, then it's a wash. I could probably live with it. I'd like to see if we can look at what kind of a return we can get on that after cleaning it up, or maybe, as Councilor Arts mentioned, maybe somebody will buy it as is, and we can do it that route and let them clean it up, which they'll do it cheaper than we will, I'm sure. I don't know if that's through to you, Rob, maybe?
So through Madam Mayor, to Councillor Scott, yeah, give you a little bit of feedback. So regarding, I get selling it as is, we'd have to go back and do a little bit more legwork to confirm that we can do that in its current state. Like I said, we have decommissioned it. The ECA on it has been rescinded, so we'd probably circle back with the ministry to make sure there's nothing else that we would need to do to sell it as is. We do have a upcoming meeting with Upper Thames, because one of the large constraints on that property is the regulated area along the river. So we do have a meeting lined up with them to have a discussion regarding what could be potentially done with that project after the site, or after the property is cleaned up, with the intent of trying to recoup some value out of it as well. There are different options. We can either we have the option of deferring this to a later date, and having those discussions with Upper Thames and seeing what comes of it, or like I said, or proceeding with the engineering work, getting the demolition costs, and then deciding at that point whether or not we proceed with it in 2022.
Thank you for the clarification, Rob. I'm just making sure that I'm going to word this properly. It sounds like there are questions from council, and that we should probably refer it back to staff and come back with a report and options. And oh, sorry, Councillor Cates, did you want to jump in? Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I have a few things that I wanted to say. So first of all, can you just clarify for me exactly where this is? Is this at the end of Jeffries?
This is, yes, that's correct. Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. So a couple of things as everybody was talking. So like you said, Rob, it's already in the budget for 2021, and development charges, to recoup it. I think that, well, first of all, I'm seeing this as today, your motion, you're asking really for us to approve that it's okay to get somebody single sourced and not 3 quotes. We're not talking about doing this or not doing this or the money. It's about the single sourcing. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, I think it's already been 2 years. If I'm not mistaken, it's been 2 years that since we've switched over. I think that it's only right that we do our very best to clean up after the mess, to take away what we did, rather than having something sit there of danger, risk, liability. And why can't you do it? You're getting the money from development charges. It was in the budget. You're only asking for the single source vendor, as the way I see it. I hope. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, my apologies for that, Councillor Cates. So the path I was going down, it seems there are some questions and options. If we refer it back to staff and they can come back with some of the answers or opportunities or more information for all of us, then we can make a decision at that point. If I table that motion that we refer back to staff, could I have a mover, please? Councillor Arts, and seconded by Councillor Shipley. All in favor of that? Is anyone opposed? Okay, so it'll come back to you then, and we'll look forward to hearing more at a later date. Thank you, Council, and we'll move on now to the gravel conversion policy, which also is the bailiwick of the Director of Public Works. So Rob, you can take us through that, please.
Sure. So yeah, so staff has worked to put together this gravel road conversion policy and staff report to council. The purpose of the report is to provide a policy for residents and council that really makes the process transparent when looking at gravel roads conversion to essentially to tar and chip or LCB surface. So we did look at a number of various standards that are used in municipalities and the MTO. This was identified in the recent strategic plan update as an objective to review the criteria of the conversion of granular roads to hard surface. So we did, like I said, we did look at a number of items. The MTO was a good example where they recommend rural road surfaces for conversion at a threshold of 400 vehicles a day. But the thresholds do drop as low as 150 in some municipalities. There are a number of considerations to take under review other than just the traffic. If you look at the policy, it identifies, percent truck, the criticality of the road connection, maintenance costs versus capital costs. So there are a number of different criteria that may end up triggering the recommendation for a conversion. But of course, it all comes down to the availability of capital and the desire to take on those financial costs. So our road system is about 567 kilometers within the municipality, and about 48% of those are over 270 kilometers are currently gravel roads. So there are a large number of kilometers of roads out there. So it would be a very large undertaking, certainly, to convert all of them, even over an extended period of time. So this policy really identifies the criteria that staff would be looking at to prioritize the conversion of those roads. So it is worth noting that gravel roads require significant capital expenditure for the conversion of those roads, especially if there's additional upgrades required, such as tiling improvements, ditching culverts. Sometimes many of the gravel roads are less than our standard road platform. Some of them at times aren't even the 6 meters. So there would be road widenings required for the conversion of these, or certainly desired for the safe travel of agricultural equipment and the general public. So the approximate cost to convert a kilometer of gravel road to LCB is approximately $168,000. And just for reference, the cost to convert a kilometer of gravel road straight to asphalt is probably in the vicinity of 3, if not 4 times that cost. So there is a significant difference. The average annual operation and maintenance cost of a kilometer of gravel road is just around $3,200, and the maintenance cost for tar and chip is around just under $3,900. So the average maintenance costs for tar and chip is slightly higher, but a large factor of why our average maintenance cost for gravel roads is lower is because we own our own gravel source through the Ovalondo and Sunnydale pits. If we were to purchase, so currently we purchase gravel for our road maintenance for only about 1/3 of the municipality, and 2/3 is provided by gravel out of the Ovalondo pit. If we were to purchase gravel, all maintenance gravel, that would increase our average maintenance cost to close to $4,400 a year. So there's a significant cost savings that we see through the use of our own gravel sources. However, of course, those are finite resources, and we know that when we look at this, we think that we need to look at the true value of the aggregate as if we were purchasing it, because as we diminish that resource, there's less asset that we have retained there in the aggregate pit itself. So just going back to the AEDT and what's used for the threshold for conversion, we felt that after looking at the cost benefit in other municipalities that an AEDT for conversion in the 200 to 400 mark was reasonable. What we're recommending in the policy is a 300. Like I said, as well, there are other factors in there including percent trucks, which can help move a road to a higher priority than it would otherwise. So the conversion of gravel roads, although when we look at the average operating costs, that we're seeing that the cost to maintain tar and chip is slightly higher than our average gravel cost currently using our own aggregate resources. We know that converting certain roads would probably, and it's hard to quantify, but that we expect that we'd see a slight positive impact to the operating budget, because the roads that we would convert are ones that actually have higher traffic volumes. So therefore, they're roads that require higher levels of maintenance when they remain as granular roads. So they would be on the high side of the average cost for O&M for the gravel roads. And I know there's just within the public realm, there is certainly a divide between residents and the public regarding the conversion of gravel roads. I've heard from many residents who would like to see certain roads converted, many others that wish them to remain gravel. And there's very understanding of both sides. That's why we really wanted to put this policy in place so that it's clear how roads would be identified and prioritized. Ultimately, this policy is not approving the conversion of any roads. It's just laying out a policy that staff can use to prioritize ones that would be recommended for conversion when there's capital funds available for such, or if there is one of the criteria is if there's a significant cost savings due to the conversion, over and above what we see on the averages. So looking at the current criteria that's recommended in the policy, there are 4 road segments that are currently identified that they would meet the conversion criteria. So the 4 sections are a 12-mile road between High Park Road and Wonderland Road. All 4 of these have a AADT over 300. Denfield Road between 9 Mile and 10 Mile. Coldstream Road between Headley Drive, and that should say Quaker Lane, not Marsh Lane. And then Bodkin Road between Southdale and Little Church. And then below in the report, you'll see the approximate dollar values, and those vary just depending on the length of the roads, obviously. Again, so this policy is not looking for approval of these. Currently, none of these are included in the 2021 budget, and we don't know, whereas we're working through the budget process, whether or not there's budget there to look at the conversion of any of these in the short term, or whether these are longer term. But this will provide council, I guess, an easier response to the public as to when the questions come up as to when their road is going to get hard surfaced. I've received some of those questions from residents where they like their road hard surface, but they're on a very, very low volume road. And it's just, when you look at this type of prioritization, it's just not going to happen for quite some time because it just doesn't make sense. So looking at the financial implications, the total estimated cost for these 4 sections of road alone is about $1.1 million. And that's, that could be plus or minus depending on the nature of those road sections and whether or not, like I said, whether or not they need to be widened or have extensive ditching done with the conversions. So to put that in context, a 1% levy increase generates about $200,000 per year based on the current tax base. So to pay for this program, we would essentially have to generate a 5.5% levy increase. Now that, of course, wouldn't have to be done over 1 year. A 1% increase per year over 5 years would essentially do it if that money was set aside for conversions or we pick away at them as possible. So I'm interested to see council's feedback on whether or not there's a desire there to try to convert roads going forward. But you also just remember that there is also the levy increases that are going to be required to fund the current asset management plan, which looks at our existing roads. The conversion of gravel roads are not included in the asset management plan. So as we convert roads and provide that higher level of service, that also ends up meaning a potentially longer term capital costs for reconstructing those roads in the future. So there are definitely pros and cons with this. So at this point, I'm happy. Oh, sorry. One thing I would point out, just one last thing, was the traffic counts. So the traffic counts that are displayed in Appendix A actually go back to 2018, 2019. So they're pre-COVID. They're pre-work on Sunningdale Roundabout. We have looked at these 4 road sections that currently meet the threshold. We have looked back at 3 or 4 years of data and have seen that in general that they are trending upwards with average annual counts. There's sometimes a little blip in the data, and even from year to year, because it may be maybe taken in different weather or different days of the week, right? So we fully expect to see some variation, but they in general are all trending upwards. And we will be updating our traffic counts on rural roads again this year. So we expect to see further increases as well. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that. And did I see your hand? Yep, we'll start with the deputy mayor, and I'm pretty sure we'll go around the table. Yes, okay, go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Rob. This is going to make, I think, council's job so much easier when people call us about why their road is or isn't being done. We can now say we have a policy, and with the criteria that would mandate when something would be looked at to be done on their road. So this is going to make our job, I think, a whole lot easier when we get these questions. I see that the roads that you've got there, the only question I would have is on 12 Mile. That's where the Stanton operation is. There are a ton of trucks. We just approved not too long ago for some additional trucking to go in there for the digester. They have literally hundreds of transport trucks of feed going down that road to look after the cattle that are on that property. We've got Mark Kennedy down the road with his trucking business. I'm not sure, and I'm not an expert, and you probably know more about this, but if a tar and chip road on that section of the road would stand up, I'm questioning whether that should be an asphalted road. Simply because of the tonnage that goes down that road and turns onto the road and turns into Stanton's driveway. So I would think that's my biggest question, is that whether a tar and chip would stand up. We did 9 Mile this year, and it's in the summertime we do it, and right at wheat time when trucks are turning into the loft elevator, it kind of tore it up pretty bad there, and that's not near the trucks that went into the Stanton operation. So that would be my only concern about all of this, is 12 Mile. And if we had to get it done sooner than later, then perhaps we could look at the tax stabilization fund, which is there to reduce taxes, withdrawing some money out of that reserve fund to get that section done. But those are just suggestions, totally up to you, but thank you for the policy.
And Councillor Heffernan?
Through the mayor to Rob. Yes, I think the policy is an excellent idea because it outlines a lot. I do have to say, kind of echoing what you said about some people don't want the pavement on their road. And I talked to different people who've said once it was converted, they wished it hadn't been, because then all of a sudden you have all these people speeding by and so much for walking on your own little gravel road. I agree with Deputy Mayor Brennan with regard to 12 Mile. That section, definitely, it makes sense totally that there's a lot of trucks going down there. Now, the one on Coldstream Side Road, like where am I here? On Coldstream Side Road, it would seem it's just that one section that's so high. So I would have thought that the trucks from Coldstream Concrete would have went out to Ilderson Road rather than go the other way, because there's no place to go that's not gravel. So I'm just curious as to how and you may not be able to answer this question, but how is it that that particular section is so much higher than the rest? And the same with, well, on Denfield Side Road there between 9 and 10, it's high there. And again, there's no other place, well, I guess, no, there's really no other paved road that it's going to go. So I'm just curious as to how come in one block, they seem to be so high? And like I said, you may not be able to answer that at all.
Yeah. So through Mayor to Councilor Heffernan, I'll jump in and maybe Andrew can add a little bit more, but the one on Coldstream Road, I would agree with you. I think the trucks would come out to Ilderton Road. So why that number shows so much higher, I don't have a good answer. All other that I can say that it's not just a single year's worth of data, because I know Andrew has checked back multiple years. I'd have to have Andrew confirm that we're actually doing traffic counts north of Quaker Lane. I would believe we are. Those numbers that we're seeing, not between Quaker Lane and Ilderton Road. As far as Denfield Road, again, you can see the numbers are all fairly high along Denfield Road, but you're right, there is that one block that does stand out. All the counts certainly don't happen the same day, and you wouldn't expect to see that much variation from a Tuesday to a Wednesday to a Thursday or whatever, say along Denfield Road, but that may play a part in it, just variation. Maybe weather was good one day and traffic was higher than it was another day when the counts were taken that year, or of the year being displayed. But we would look at a longer term average as well to make sure that we're seeing numbers that we don't see any abnormalities that should be discounted.
Add on?
Thank you.
You got, okay, and Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Mayor. A question and a couple of comments, Rob. So when you do a traffic count, is that electronic or is it physically somebody sitting there looking at it?
So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Shipley, it's the counters or loggers that get placed. You've probably seen the tubes that run across the roads, and then there's a counter box off to the side. So every time the axles hit that, it triggers there's a counter that adds to the vehicle count. So they go out for a 24-hour period, Monday to Friday.
So I guess my concern is, and possibly because of Denfield there, is you run a set of B trains, you got 8 axles going over it, with the loft elevators in that area. I'm just wondering if that is kind of giving a false reading as opposed to number of vehicles there. You run a triaxle, you have 5 axles, 8 axles. I'm just wondering if that's kind of skewing your numbers on that road there.
Andrew might be able to jump in here as well, but I would say it possibly could be, but as a percentage of the total traffic, we're probably looking at the truck traffic is probably fairly low as a percentage. So the skew is, if there is a skew, it's probably not that significant. And certainly before we do conversions, we can go out and do a manual count or put out counters for a longer period of time to confirm those counts are accurate.
I just find that odd on Denfield there, just in that one section, 9-10 mile. In respect to 12 mile, I did speak to Mr. Stanton last night. He'd love to see something done there. Also concerned, as Deputy Mayor Brennan said, with the turning of the trucks into his residence with tar and chip. There was a thought with just him and I speaking to him, if we asphalt that section from his 2 driveways, then go back to tar and chip the rest of the way. But that's just a thought that we were discussing. Thank you.
So Arts?
Through your Madam Mayor to Rob, I appreciate that we're having a policy, like everyone said, it gives clarification. And I know I've got people that swear at paved roads, swear at gravel roads, but they have to realize that council still is going to be the ones that agree to a road being paved. And that Coldstream Road between Headley and Quaker Lane has got me a little confused too. All the Coldstream concrete trucks don't go to Headley Drive. They all leave the other way. There's MDI trucking, but I don't think he's got that many trucks on the road. But I honestly think a lot of that traffic might be coming off at Egremont. They go down Headley to Coldstream and then back to Ilderton Road to avoid Coldstream and Poplar Hill. That might be a reason why it is higher, because that's the only reason I could think of. Because yeah, that one kind of baffled me. What other thing I was gonna say? Oh, yeah, and I already talked to you about some consideration if we do widen these roads, the agricultural community, that we've got enough room, enough shoulder to pull off on the road, because most of our combines with duals on, they're like 5.2 meters, or you think the old way, that's 17 feet. So you need a bit of room to get off the road. So I know you'll take that into consideration too. So thank you.
Is there anything you wanted to comment on for that, Rob, or?
Yeah, just the concern regarding the road width, and I think that's a valid concern, and I think that's when we've looked at a number of roads. We know that there would be widenings that would be required in shouldering and whatnot, and that's where some of those additional costs may come in. The dollar values that have been provided are ballpark, and it's obviously a lot cheaper just to go in and put down tar and chip on a sub base that's already there, and that we don't have to widen. So when we get into going from a 5.5 meter road to an 8 meter road, there is substantially more cost there too. So that's all things that would be considered when we're looking at identifying projects for conversion, because they'll play into the costs as well. So.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. To Rob, I'm not sure. I just want to say, great policy. Well done. I just want to clarify in my crazy little mind here. Today, we are looking at this to receive the report and endorse the gravel road conversion policy as found in Appendix B. I think that the report is great. And but I just want to clarify, I'm sitting here reading this and listening to everybody, and I don't believe that we are also looking at voting on doing this work for the 1.113 million price when we can't even approve something that's already in the budget for the wastewater treatment plant to be demolished to clean up after ourselves. It's already in the budget and development charges will cover. So I just want to clarify, we're not voting on tar and chipping some roads.
Through the chair, correct, Councillor Cates. All we're agreeing to is just putting a policy in place that helps staff and council should we wish to continue forward on identifying a particular roadway, that we've got something in place to justify moving forward. As Rob mentioned, these are just examples to give council a general overview of what it costs. And we have to budget for any future identified roads that we would convert, but at least now we would have a policy if council wished to approve it.
Thank you. Well done on the policy, Rob.
And Councillor Scott, you have comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So yeah, I agree that the policy is nice to see what's going on and to understand that what roads are getting most of the traffic on. Of course, I also agree that the conversion of these roads is going to increase the speed, and that's most of the complaints I ever hear about in town is about people speeding. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. I guess my question is, and again, I think the policy is great to identify these roads. Now, when we identify them and put a number of 300 cars as the marker that we should be looking at converting these roads, although we're not approving that we're doing that at 300, does it not give us some sort of an obligation if somebody comes in and says, hey, you hit the number now, so you need to convert it? So how do we get around that? Because like I said, I like the idea of knowing. I think it's important, but how do we say no when it's 305 cars and we go, you know what, is everybody willing to chip in and pay for this? Because that's the question we got to ask. And if they all say, yeah, I'm willing to pay for it, I love it. Because if people want to pay for stuff, we can do it easy.
Do you want to comment on that, Rob? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Scott. No, that's a good question. I think that's why the policy was laid out, that it clearly identifies that the capital has to be there in order to convert the roads, right? So if the funds are not there in the capital budget, there are no conversions. I think even like you said, if somebody comes in at 305, so that's fine, it meets one criteria, but there may be other roads that meet 2 or 3, or that they have a higher volume. So we would have a priority list identified, and so they may fall onto that, but they may be at sixth or whatever. And then as capital funds become available and council chooses to move forward with those, then that's that they would move up that list. Yeah, I think that's. I'm not sure if Andrew wants to add anything. The one thing I'd like to say is I appreciate all the positive feedback on the policy. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Andrew did a great job on this. He did, in large part, he prepared the policy and did a lot of the legwork. I just happen to be the one that gets to do all the talking. So thank you.
Okay, well, I'm just going to weigh in as well. I'll begin by saying I really am very glad to see a policy now. We're at a point where we do need one, I think, to make sure that we can explain very clearly to people why it is we are or aren't doing certain things or considering certain things. So it's the transparency of how decisions are made, and you don't have to say, oh, you're on council, your road just got paved kind of conversations. So I like the tie into the asset management plan too. I think right now that's 5.5% levy to cover 4 bits and bobs. Right now gives us a really good idea of what this whole thing is going to cost. I imagine down the road there'll be some kind of not just a policy, but a conversion plan for our municipality based on, as you said, all those variables that are going to be taken into consideration and weighted. And I guess with respect to the speeding thing, I hear that on my own concession, because we are one where traffic changes depending on how many trains are stopped at which intersection. And there are those that say, when are we getting it paved? And then the neighbor across the road saying, don't you dare pave this road. I can just see what's going to happen. I guess it's sort of like sidewalks in Millerton, right? Yeah. So it's one of those conversations. When it becomes a safety issue or whatever, you'll deal with it and we'll see it. So right now, I think this is a great step, and really appreciate the work of you and Andrew to bring this forward. If there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to read the recommendation, and it is that council receive for information report PWE 30/2021 gravel road conversion policy, and that council endorse the gravel road conversion policy as found in Appendix B. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks again. Okay, there are no notices of motion. We do have two correspondence items. Is there anybody who would like to comment on either or ask a question? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that council for the municipality of Middlesex Centre receives correspondence items 10.1 and 10.2 as information. A mover, please, and Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Cates. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. I'm going to look now to our Deputy Mayor for a County Council update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe we actually have two, because we had a council meeting, county council meeting shortly after our last council meeting. So the county council meeting from September 28th, there is an ambulance service review, which looks at 70% of it entails patient care, quality assurance 20%, and administration 10%. There were a few very minor areas where some things needed to be tightened up, but overall it was a good report. We put out, the county put out a request for proposals for electronic patient care record solution. Currently, the contract is being done by Innovative Technologies until the end of the year. The new contract would be for 3 years plus 4 one-year extensions at $442,970 a year, or for the 4 years. For a 3-year contract, it's $140,216. So that same company that has been doing it, it will continue with under the new contracts. The county CEO and other staff from the county is working with Oneida Nations, helping them with some governance things and organizational things to help them get some things done on a cost recovery basis. Those are ongoing. Carol Small was at the meeting to give her talk on the Middlesex County Archive project, same as what we had here at our council meeting. It was presented at the county council. There were some planning stuff from Middlesex Center, and it was passed, and some a budget variance report was received. Strathmere Lodge reports were given, and it was noted that November 27th will be the warden's banquet this year. We'll move to the county council meeting yesterday from our woodlot organization. The county owns about 1,000 hectares of woodlots throughout the county in 27 different pieces of land. They're looking at doing some harvesting, mainly white pines. The two tracks that they're looking at doing are in Southwest Middlesex right now, and Townsend Lumber Incorporated won the contract, a tender contract to harvest approximately 927 trees from these two tracks at a budget of $63,250 for the county. Paramedic service response times were received. There's been some slight changes to those times to make them more realistic. We're still seeing a lot of off-lane delays, which are impacting particularly the response time for cardiac heart attacks and that sort of thing. The level 1 or the cardiac arrest are 6-minute arrival 75% of the time. And because of dispatching, the way some of the calls are dispatched and the offload problems, they're struggling to meet these times, but they have achieved about a 66.3% time on getting those. So they are changing some of them, the code 3s and 4s, which are like a level 5 is a 120-minute to see a doctor. So you're there for a couple hours before a doctor's going to see you. On a level 5, a level 4 is 60 minutes, and so on. As the levels get down to 1, it's more you see a doctor right away, virtually on a level 1. In investing in Canada infrastructure program, a transfer payment agreement, the county received $210,000 for the paved shoulders along Medway Road from Marvin to Valley Moat, which that job has just been done. The lines haven't been painted yet, but the road is a little bit wider. So the money received certainly didn't cover the cost of that totally, but it was money that we did receive. The county in lower tiers in the intake 2 of modernization, there were $65,000 received there. Culinary catering lease, which they rent the Middlesex room at the county building and do weddings and that sort of thing. Due to COVID, they were unable to pay the rent for 16 months because they just couldn't operate. There was no weddings allowed or anything. So that $103,000 worth of revenue for the county was written off by the county, and they restarted back up in July. So they are now currently back online paying their rent and having wedding venues there. The county has about $22 million in investments for Scotia McLeod, earning about 2.9% interest. And due to the sale of the building, they had at current the end of 2021 about $31 million in cash assets. A lot of that being from the sale of the property. The golf tournament, the county or the warden held in September, had 104 golfers. Money donated from the money raised for the golf tournament, $4,000 was donated to Victim Services of Middlesex, London. And the other one was the Lucan Legion branch. Obviously, the warden being from Lucan, received $20,000 from the golf tournament. Again, there are some planning things in Luke of the Golf in our township that were passed. We've already passed here. And the next meeting, and then again, the ordinance banquet is then in November, and that's hopefully going to be a go. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, if I may just add one thing. It may be of interest to us too that the Middlesex County staff are going to be bringing back a report with regard to the Middlesex County Archives. And yeah, so that was just an update to Carol's presentation. So that will be forthcoming. Okay, moving on then. Under other business, Councillor Heffernan is going to give us a little update on the fair.
Yes, this is a pandemic good news story. So as you know, or you may know, in 2019 fair was the 168th Ilderton Fair in a row. 2020 was the first fair that has ever been missed. So 2021, initially they weren't going to go ahead because, you know, of all the COVID protocols, what have you, and how do you prevent crowds of people or whatever. But anyway, the directors decided to give it a try. And so they dealt with Middlesex Health Unit and got all the protocols in place and laid out everything best they could. So of course it's a shorter version. So they did have a midway. They had some food vendors. They had a one-way walk through the agriplex to see some animals. They had a tractor pull and a few vendors, and they had some kids attractions and what have you. So they did their best to do what they could while people will still generally be distanced. And they did ask people to wear masks, whether it's indoor or outdoor, and it was all outdoor, I think, except for the agriplex. And to stay distance where they could. And some of our volunteers were pretty good. This is all run by volunteers, by the way. Of course, you know that. Some of our volunteers were pretty vociferous and, you know, telling somebody to get their mask on. When I was there Saturday afternoon, there was no issues that I could see. You know, some people, it was a hot day, so a lot of people were taking their masks off, but they had them there, so they were pulling them up if needed. Anyway, so they had approximately 8,700 paying guests, which means high school age and up. And the peak on Friday night, they had 3,500, and on Saturday night, 4,200. And I don't have any figures for Sunday, so I'm guessing it wasn't best. And overall, these are approximate numbers, but overall, the Midway grossed $200,000 this year, which is most it's ever grossed. And so obviously people came for the Midway generally, and a lot were Londoners. So anyway, they haven't finalized. That's just a tentative number. They haven't finalized things. The Midway obviously takes most of it, and the fair gets a percentage, but their percentage will certainly be a lot of money put in their coffers. So I just wanted to comment on that because I think it was very well done by all the volunteers and following protocols, and they did their best, and we didn't have too many issues, which is great. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that update, and I'll echo your comments. It was very well run, and where I was, we didn't hit capacity, and people did the one-way route through the building the way we were asked to do that, and they were wearing their masks. Everyone was having a really good time. There were people from the city and actually volunteers from the city as well. So it was really great to see that there was, you know, everyone was pulling in the same direction, trying to make this a great event. Too bad about the weather on Sunday. I didn't go Sunday, but it was grayer and darker.
Yeah, if I could
Sunday.
just add to that, they said they hadn't advertised in London, like they just did their usual advertisement. So it was surprising that they had so many from London.
It was my niece, so I know where she lives. So that was like,
Okay.
what are you doing here? But yeah, they knew and they came. So yeah, word of mouth, it works great. So say kudos to the team there and congratulations on that. Look forward to a real event next year. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that update. There's nothing else under other business for anyone? Nope. Okay, well, we can now, we have to go into closed sessions. We have a motion before us that the Council of the Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourn to closed meeting at 10:54 pursuant to 239(2) of Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following. A, the security of the property of the municipality. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual. C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. And E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Mover, please, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that carries. And thank you to everyone. We'll be going offline now.